Arbitrum agents that can actually reason and act. Here's what happened. In the last video, we registered an AI agent on Arbitrum and we saw that they have an identity, but actually they weren't doing any action at all. For that video, what we wanted to achieve is what can we do with that agent that can help us in the user experience or even automate some actions. So I've been playing around with LangChain, specifically on how they do the tool integration and context injection around different tools. Because I didn't want just an agent to have just a CLI call. Maybe there are some actions, this is how I call them, that can enlarge the agent capabilities. For this specific video, we're gonna see how integrated this mix of skills and tools to make that possible. Let's see how this works and what happened during the video. If we go to the architecture, let's follow the basics, right? We have 3 levels of abstraction. This is what I architecture. First, we have the skill, right? This might be and might sound really familiar, and those are markdown files that what is giving is some context and guidance to the LLM, right? So the LLM is trained upon a lot of data, but for a specific task and something that is not trained for, it might need some sort of guidance. At the second level, we have tools. Tools are basically the executables that the LLM needs to invocate in order to perform several actions that it's mandate for, right? So, for example, if the LLM resonates that it has to perform an RPC call, we have provided different tools, kind of these arms, right, to be able to integrate with off-chain services or on-chain services and to be able to execute stuff. So this will go through the framework and will be executed. And last, for this specific framework, I have created these actions. These actions are wrappers, let's say, of skills and tools. So when you want to perform a specific action, let's say a swap, a transfer, or any other primitive that you want to create, you define a skill, plus you give them some tools to perform like other heavy stuff that you want to do. This was my first thought, because I thought like skills were somehow more limited to the on-chain actions that they can perform. But in the end, what we're bringing here is 3 levels of abstractions. First, you can just bring your skills and use the agent with plain skills. Then you can also, on top of that, like have several tools for different actions that you want to perform, and then you connect them somehow. And this somehow is actually the 3rd level of abstraction, that is the action, right? So the action can be imported and you have an action that is already defined by someone and you have skills plus tools, or you can say, hey, I have this really complex task that I want to give a really interesting or detailed skill plus these 3 tools for whatever you need for that will help the agent perform this task. But let's go and set up the first agent so we see exactly how this translates into code. Okay, perfect. So let's get it running. First of all, I recommend going through the README, something that we no longer do, but here you have a very good quick start for the project. You have to first run npm install, which I already did, but the first step would be to run the setup, right? So this setup will help you to have a master wallet, and this script will generate you a private key, show you a QR code, and be able like to fund this first address. So this master account, what will be giving you is the possibility to fund all the deployed agents that you're going to use or deploy or orchestrate with this framework, right? So we have here like the QR code of the public address, and now what you have to do first is fund it with some Sepolia ETH on Arbitrum Sepolia. Okay, now that we have funded the address, the next step is setting up the API key of the LLM, right? This engine of the agent. So for testing purposes, what I wanted is to be as simple as possible and to not having to plug your private API keys, right? So I didn't want everyone to put an Anthropic or OpenAI API key. And I came across this OpenRouter that is very interesting. It has a really nice free tier for testing purposes. And then it also forwards the information or the request that you are sending, depending of the complexity of that request, right? So if it's very simple, it will go to a GPT-4o mini, let's say, and then if it's more complex, it can go to a Codex 5. Whatever, I don't know which one are we right now. So if we say, okay, get an API key, you can create one and say, okay, this is a DeFi agent, for example, DeFi agent, and then you can set that this is going to be for 1 hour, and then you have a new private key. So we go to our environment file that it has been generated during the npm run setup, and here you can plug your private key you will have the private key of the master wallet. Also, of course, this is not for production, right? So we are creating wallets and signing everything like in plain text without any protection. So do not use it for production. It's just something to test out. But here you have, this was an old API key that I had, so you can put now the one that we have created. And here you have the RPC URL for connecting to different endpoints, the master private key of the wallet that we have created as well, right? So what we can do now is not running a test, but actually creating our first agent. So if we run this command, we'll have an interactive CLI that will say, okay, let's define a name, DeFi LangChain. And now we have here the step of the actions that we have explained before. So if we select this option, we will have the action of transfer native ETH, right? So first we have the skill that will define basically transfer ETH on Arbitrum with balance checks and safety confirmations. That would be like a small hint of what the skill does, and then which tools is actually using. Very simple ones, but actually just for testing purposes. So you have one that is for sending ETH and another one for get the token balance. So we select it with the spacebar, we enter, and then we can continue. We select how much we want to fund from the master wallet to the agent that we are deploying. And what is happening right now is, and maybe you're familiar with that, is registering this agent on the ERC-8004 to have discoverability and to have reputation and so on. So you have here a small explanation of what the agent does. And what you can open now is an interactive chat because, ladies and gentlemen, we have here an agent deploying Arbitrum Sepolia. So we can open an interactive chat and actually the memory will be persistent. So you can start typing and saying, hi, can you send ETH to, and we can get some ETH back to the master account. And now we'll get a response and say, hi there, how much ETH would you like? Of course, because we haven't defined. So we can say, hey, we want to send 0.001 because we do have balance, right? Yes, 001, maybe 0001 ETH. And now our engine, our LLM will understand this. Exactly, it's called the first tool that is calling send ETH, and then it has executed the second one. So I have sent 0.0001 ETH to this address, and you can view here the transaction. So if we actually open it, we can see how our agent with his own wallet has sent some ETH back to the master wallet. While I was building this tool and preparing the framework and so on, I saw like there's room for improvement around a lot of topics, right? I think this could be a foundation for improving the UX, how we interact with the blockchain autonomously. We can create so many new primitives around DeFi and other actions and other tools and so on. So this is super powerful actually. And that's why I wanted to try out LangChain. I found actually, while I was doing the investigation, that there's a standard around skills that are much more broader, much more portable and so on. So if you build a tool for everything that you want to do, this agent won't be autonomous, will completely depend on what you have set up it for, right? So it's important that the agents can improve themselves and can use different skills and discover new skills while they have been deployed already. So this is a small difference, but actually I think it will make the big gap between the ones that are really truly autonomous and the ones that are very, very narrow and defined. What I do really think is that skills have come to stay, and this is something that is becoming an industry standard and adopted by a lot of projects. I would really like to know if you're already playing with AI agents, and if so, which is your favorite skill right now? If you are using them for coding, for DeFi, or what is the use case that you are most excited for? Please drop a comment below and tell me what is your next idea.